Hi there, my name is Russ Laggan. I am Vice President of eXp and Growth. And funny enough, I've actually sold a house or two in my day. There's a lot of people in leadership in real estate companies around the country that don't actually do the home sale thing, but pretty much everybody in our company at high levels of leadership actually have sold homes at some point in their career. So one of the things that I used to love to do was to talk about doing listing appointments. The good news is I haven't had to do that in a while because of my role as an executive. But you know what? These guys asked me if I could have a conversation with you guys for the Executive Masterclass. And I thought, man, it's the perfect time to unbox Listing Made Simple. And here's the reason why. If you are a newer agent that have struggled to get really high conversions on your listings, this thing is for you. If you're an experienced agent and you want to learn how to make this a little bit easier and avoid some of the nonsense that goes on when you're going through listing appointments and wondering, am I going to get it? Am I not going to get it? Am I going to get it? Am I not? Or fighting with them over price, this is for you. If you are an experienced agent, there's a really, really good chance that you've got some really amazing stuff, and there's got to be something in here that's going to actually make sense for you. Wait till you see how I do the objection handling when we talk about they're not agreeing with us on the price. I'm going to get into that too. I think you guys are going to get a kick out of that. So, have you ever seen a plan that's so complicated it's got to work? No. So that's why this is Listing Made Simple today on Executive Masterclass. Let's kick it off with, where do I even start on this listing thing, Russ? Well, let's start at the very, very beginning. The key to having a good listing presentation starts with getting to know the people that you're going to go see. Now, for me, I am a huge fan of doing business with the people that I already know, like, and trust. And by the way, 63% of sellers, when surveyed, said that they chose the person to list their house because they knew them, liked them, or trusted them. They were in their sphere of influence. So when you guys say, well, Russ, how do I even get into the problem of having to do a listing appointment? This is where your listing appointment's most likely to come from. So what I want you guys to start thinking is, okay, cool. As I'm out and about doing my things and doing the things a real estate agent does, I want to be really cognizant of the fact that this is where listings come from. Okay, more likely to come from the people you know, like, and trust than any other source. So I want you to start thinking, okay, now that I know that, I got to start looking at my database and going, oh, that's where my listings are. So if you aren't getting listings consistently from your database, there's a number of things you're going to want to do. As a matter of fact, I think our production crew in the back, at the end of this, what I want to do is I want to have a QR code that pops up, and I'll drop that QR code in here, and you guys can have 8 modules, which I did on the last masterclass. I gave that away, but I'll do it again on this one. 8 modules on how to get business to come to you, doing 3 simple recipes. One of which, of course, is doing a good real estate market update. So I'm going to make sure you guys get the QR code to that at the end so you can learn how to actually get that coming to you. Okay. Now let's get into the actual process itself. Okay. First things first, when I'm doing the listing presentation stuff, is I want to do a pre-list conversation. The pre-list conversation goes something like this. I'm going to call up. I'm like, hey, this is Russ. Randy, you have a couple of seconds? Yeah. Randy's like, yeah, I got a couple of seconds, Russ. Cool. I say, hey, man, I'm planning on coming over on Thursday. Today is Tuesday. I'm planning on coming over on Thursday. And I wanted, before I go there, I want to ask you a couple of quick questions about the house so I can make sure I get this as close as possible and right as possible. Is that fair? And Randy's like, yeah, man, that's cool. Totally. Yeah. Okay, great. And then I start off as like, hey, tell me a little bit about your house. Tell me a little bit about your house. And the reason I say it like that, and I ask that question like that, or to make that statement like that, is because I want to see where they go with this thing, right? The way they answer that question is going to tell me all kinds of great information about who's actually having the conversation with me, right? So if Randy starts going on a list, he's like, well, we're 1,877 square feet. We're 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, but the upstairs actually could be 4 bedrooms if you put the partition wall back in, but we took it out because we used it. And it goes into a lot of details. You got an analytical person. So now in my head, I've got to be prepared for analytical, right? If I get the response back, it's like, man, we got a grill in the backyard. We got hanging out with the neighbors. It's been amazing. We drink beers and fire up the grill and do fireworks with the kids. You know, now you know you've got a promoter type personality. If I go really deep on details with a promoter personality, you lose them, right? If I go full promoter and don't have details to an analytical person, you got a problem. So what I want to do is I want to get a feel for what type of person I'm talking to. And I'm going to get that pre-listing conversation to answer basic questions about the house. All right, cool. So, hey, I did a little bit of research on the house. And can you confirm how many bedrooms you have? Guys, just because it says something in the tax records doesn't mean it's actually accurate. By the way, you want to ask about garages. So there's a lot of places like Tampa, Florida, you get into Seminole Heights, and it says 1-car garage. Like, is the garage enclosed into living space or not? It's like a really common question, right? Because I know down there, that's where they steal a bunch of living space. They put air conditioning, put electric, seal it all off, and that garage is actually living space now. Sometimes a bedroom, sometimes they'll even add a bathroom in there, many times without permits. So you want to start asking questions. Have you done anything recently to the house? Tell me about the house. Have you done anything recent to the house? Have you done any upgrades? And they'll say, yeah, I did. Boom, boom, boom. Great. Did you do them yourself or did you have them done professionally? Good question to ask, right? So if they say they did it themselves, great. Have you done that before? That's amazing. I don't know a whole lot of people that can lay their own hardwood floor. That's pretty cool. Hey, how did they turn out? There are times when we have people that will tell us they are fixer-upper people, or they are do-it-yourself people, or they are a handyman. Man, I will tell you what, the house that I live in right now, every time we take apart anything, we're like, come on, Lenny. Lenny passed away a couple years ago, left a legacy in this neighborhood. Very, very well-respected man in this neighborhood. But man, when he fixed stuff, he found creative ways of fixing stuff. So we just shake our head and like, come on, Lenny, and he's probably up in heaven right now, just smiling his butt off. He's like, oh man, I remember when I did that, So there, you want to ask these questions. Like, do you do this? Have you done this a bunch? I was like, how did it turn out? Okay. So you want to get good information about the house, because what I don't want to do is walk into the house and get completely blindsided. Say, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you consider the condition of the house? 10 being perfect, immaculate, you can eat off the floors and everything's perfectly done, or a 1, it's destroyed and needs to be lit on fire. Great question to ask, right? So you want to get a good feel for what's going on with the house. You want to confirm, of course, the tax record information. You want to, of course, confirm the taxes that they're paying on the house so that we can put together a good seller's net sheet. Okay, so that pre-listing conversation is super important to gather as much information as possible and just get a good feel for what you're walking into, right? Next up, once we've got that done, then I'm going to set this thing up, right? Let's set this thing up to show up at the house, right? Step number 2 is show up. And I want you to understand, like, there's all different varieties of information on showing up. Like, if you book it for 2 o'clock, don't show up at 1:30 and sit in the driveway. That creeps people out. It weirds people out, makes them feel uncomfortable. If you want to show up at half an hour early so you know you're in the area, great. Park around the street, park around the block. Don't sit in their driveway. Don't sit directly in front of their house on the phone for half an hour beforehand. Because if your house is like anything like mine, you get the dogs looking out the window. What's going on out there? Got my wife looking out the window. What's going on out there? Right? I want to make sure that we show up at a timely manner and you show up just like you said you would. Right? So I'm going to show up a minute or two before 2 o'clock and I'm like, here we go. Ready to go. Show's on, right? I don't want you to do it 5 or 6 minutes early, and I don't want you to do it 5 or 6 minutes late, okay? Super, super important. There are a lot of people that say punctuality is almost next to cleanliness, which is next to godliness. So it's super easy for you to set yourself up to be in a position where you show up on time, not early, not late, on time. And then when they open the door, it's like, hey, Russ, showing up just like I said it would, 2 o'clock. Boom. And there you're like, bam, now I'm starting to get credibility right out of the gate, okay? So if you're doing what people are expecting and what you tell them you're going to do, you start building little moments of credibility as you're going through this process one step at a time. And in the back of their head, they're not going, wow, this guy did what he said he's going to do. But in the back of their head, they're going to say, this guy did what he said he's going to do, okay? So with that said, show up on time. Schedule it. Make sure you leave plenty of time. Make sure you adapt for traffic and make sure you're plenty early. So if you have to get a delay, you're still on time. Good. Showing up on time is important. Do it. All right. Third thing is now I'm going to do a house tour. Okay. I told you guys this was simple. These are not complicated steps, but a lot of people miss these things on the way through and then they end up struggling and then they end up having a hard time getting closed. Okay. So last part here is going to be doing the walkthrough, right? I want to walk through the house. And here's what I do when I want to walk through the house. I actually kind of take a little bit of a different angle on this when I do the walk through the house, and here's why. A lot of people will just start chitter chatter and stuff about various things and let the seller steer it wherever they're going to steer it. But I like to start off with make sure, hey, do you want me to take my shoes off? Yes or no? Ask the question. In some cultures, it's really rude not to take your shoes off. By the way, make sure you've got clean socks. Make sure your socks don't have holes in the toe like I did one time, and I popped it out and I was like, That's cool. Right? All right. So make sure you ask that question and then say to them, hey, as we're going through, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to give me a tour of your home. And I would like for you to point out the things that you fell in love with this house when you bought this house, because there's a really good chance the next buyer is going to fall in love with the same stuff. Sound good? Now you've got them talking and saying things that are positive about their house. You've got their frame and their mindset going in the right direction. So let's go back and tie this to something that I heard recently. Okay, so there's a guy named Chris Voss. Chris Voss is ex-FBI hostage negotiator, and in his book, Never Split the Difference, he has a number of different techniques about negotiation. And one of the things that he mentioned when I saw him in person on stage recently, he said, when you ask the person to tell you about something they love, it completely changes the demeanor and the interaction with a person. Right? So I've been doing this for a bunch of years when I interview real estate agents, like, hey, tell me what you love about this business. And when I was doing listing appointments, like, hey, tell me what you love about this house. And what happens is when somebody's starting to talk with you about something that they love, there is a connection made. You can believe all the stuff you want about energies and so forth. I don't care if you believe in it or not, but I will tell you, do it a couple of times and you're going to find you're going to have a reaction. You're going to go, what is that? I don't know what it is. I don't know where it comes from. All I know is that when I get somebody talking about something they love, it's a completely different connection. A lot different, deeper connection right out of the gate. Ask a person what they love. Ask a person about their dog when you see the dog. Oh, tell me about your dog. As soon as you get that person talking, like that person's going to think you're the most amazing person in the world because you're getting them to talk about something that they love. Okay. Same exact thing with a house. Okay. So guys, I want you to understand we're dealing with people here. It's like we talk about presentation, right? This isn't presentation. This is communication. This is being human. This is connecting with the other human on the other side of the deal. Okay. So ask them, tell me what you love about the house. When you bought it, what do you love about the house? Show me the things about this house that you love. Because I want to make sure I'm making notes of that. It changes the whole dynamic, okay? So you're going to walk through the house. Funny enough, I remember Brian Buffini back in the day. Like I did this once, and I felt like a complete idiot. So the people are walking through the house, and they're pointing out things, and then Brian would just follow around behind them, and he's like, stove, fridge, floor. And you just repeat the words that they were saying. But what happens when you look at how human psychology works? Having them talk about something they love is one thing. And then that part is like when you're repeating words that they're using, for some reason, it just makes a connection, right? People talk about NLP and neuro-linguistic programming and all those things. Of course, a lot of that has to go in there. I've never studied it in detail, but what I have studied is when I find that I'm repeating back to people and just summarizing what they're saying to me, they feel like I'm with them. They feel like I'm on their side. Keep in mind, guys, a lot of these listing appointment things, back in the day when I started doing listing appointments, it was 2007, 8, 9. We were going in to do a listing appointment. They bought the house for $300. I'm sitting down showing them it was worth $150. Yeah, they'd lost $150,000 on the house in the last 3 years. So you can only imagine some of those conversations. Boom. They're like, if you think you're going to tell me my house is worth less than $350, you're crazy. I'm like, well, I'm crazy then because let me show you the facts. I'm going to show you the facts. You can do whatever you want, but at least you're going to know the facts, right? So doing this walkthrough helps build that credibility and starts building that sense of community and building that sense of they're like, well, I'm on your side, right? Yeah, love that. That's great. Yeah, beautiful. So when they say something, you comment back affirming the things that they're talking about, right? And by the way, hey, are there any things in this house that you probably don't want to show me that you may have gone wrong with the house? Because at some point we're going to have to do disclosures, and those disclosures are going to have to disclose what we know is wrong with the house that could financially hurt the value of the house. So are there any surprises that you haven't mentioned or pointed out? Okay, that's something you want to do in the walkthrough. I'd rather know that now, right? You're like, well, yeah, I don't want to show you the basement because we've got this beam and the beam's broke, and is that going to affect the value of the house? Sure. I don't want to talk about $350,000 if I know we got a $50,000 repair that needs to be done in the basement just to make the house livable. Okay, so ask the questions in the walkthrough. It doesn't have to be contentious, just real casual, right? Hey, tell me about it. It's like, hey, anything else in the house that I may not have known of? Like, have you had any leaks or anything weird happen to the house? Water heater blew up and slid around in the basement. Anything odd has happened in the house recently that might affect the value. Okay, now I've also got myself in a position where legally I could say, I asked the question, and then I also had them fill out the document. So it gives us a way to cover our butt, but also get a better feel because I don't like surprises. Like, I'm not a magician. I'm not a clown. If I was either one of those, I'd love surprises. But as a real estate agent, do not like surprises at all. Okay. So the walkthrough is super important. Now, once I get through the walkthrough, I want to control the environment. A lot of times people are like, hey, let's sit down on the couch. And everybody's facing the same direction type of thing. Or they're sitting in an armchair and another armchair and the TV's going. For me personally, I like to suggest that we sit around the kitchen table if at all possible, or sit around a table if at all possible. That way I can make sure everybody sees everything. And that way I make sure we're all on the same page with the least amount of distractions, okay? You're going to have dogs doing weird things. You're going to have dogs that think it's dinner time, right? You're going to have dogs that think it's exciting that you're there and they just won't leave you alone, and you end up with a dog's head in your lap for the whole thing. Totally cool, right? You're going to have kids running around sometimes and distractions. So the best thing I could do is circle the wagons, and that's sitting at the table where we're all kind of sitting together. Now, people will talk about like, well, Russ, do you sit across from them, or you sit directly next to them, or you sit between them? Like, just figure out what feels best for you. For me, what I'd like to do a lot of times is say, hey, what I'd like to do is I'm going to sit here. You can sit on one side and you can sit on the other. So they're facing each other, and then I can put information in between them so they can both see it well. Just figure out what works for you depending on the situation. But I want you to control that, right? Because guess what? We're starting to take control as we're going through this process. I want them to start seeing us as somebody that is in charge. I want them to start seeing us as somebody that actually has the ability to control the energy and the environment and the situation. Because realistically, as a negotiator, you need to be able to demonstrate you have the ability to take control of a situation, okay? So I'll make a suggestion, and if they debate it, let them do whatever they want, but I'll make a suggestion. Hey, if I could sit here, you sit here and here, that way you guys can both see what I'm doing, you can both see my laptop, you can both see my paper, whatever choice you choose to present with, okay? I want to make sure both of you guys see that. Is that fair? Yeah? Good. Park it, right? So then we sit down, okay? When we sit down, I'm going to do this quick overview. Number 5, overview. Okay, I want to make sure we're clear what I'm doing and what I'm going to talk about. I also want to make sure that they understand that this is about them. Okay, see, guys, gals, a lot of times when we do listing presentations, and I've seen these done and I've seen people teach them, and they talk about like, well, what you need to do is you need to put together this binder with 750 pages of stuff that tells people how great you are, and you got your reviews, and you got your 5 stars, and you got your socials, and you got your testimonials, and you got your home pictures, and you got your track record, and you got your past sales info, and you got your list. Listen, guys, if you're in that room and there's somebody you know, most of that doesn't really matter to them. But what I do know matters is 3 things. And the reason I know that is because I've asked, okay? How do you know what matters to to sellers, Russ? Well, I asked them. And after a while of asking them, I'm like, they only pretty much want to know the same 3 things. It's really 2 things they want to know. And the third thing, maybe once in a while, we'll touch on it, right? So here's what I'll do. I'll start off my presentation, and here's my script. You can borrow it if you'd like. It's like, okay, so today there's a bunch of different ways we can do this. I want to start off with a quick overview of what's going on in the market so you understand what the overall market is doing. Good, fair. And you're shaking your head yes, and you're looking at them in the eye. Yeah. Make sure you're talking to both of them. Husband and wife, wife and husband, husband and husband, wife and wife. I don't care. If there's 2 of them, talk to both of them. If there's 3 of them, talk to all 3 of them, right? If you leave one of them out for whatever reason, you're potentially creating a problem. And many times the one you think that's in charge isn't actually in charge. Go figure, right? Learned that the hard way more than once. Talked to him the whole time because he's mouthy and a driver. Turns out she was the decision maker. I didn't know till I found out after the fact. So now I learned after that one, doing that a couple of times, like, don't do that again. Talk to both of them. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Get both of their buy-in as you're going through. Okay. So as I'm doing this overview, I'm going to do an overview of what's going on in the market. Good. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then there's really 3 things we need to talk about today. One is, what is your house worth? Bet you're dying to know that one, right? Yeah. And they're like, yeah. Okay. Good. And the second thing is, if we get that for your house, how much dollars do you get to keep? Because it's going to cost money to sell the house. I want to know exactly how many dollars you get. If we sell this for $350, exactly what you net. That's a good number, right? Yeah. Good. Cool. Okay, and the third thing is, am I the right person for the job of helping you sell the house? By the time we get through 1 and 2, you're already going to know the answer to 3. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, but otherwise, I'm not going to go on a long sales pitch telling you all about my stuff, okay? Unless you want to know it. Is there anything else that's important to you? Pause. Shut it. Is there anything else that's important to you? Every once in a while, somebody will say, well, yeah, I want to know blah, 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 blah. I say, okay, good, cool. We're going to talk about that in the marketing part. We're going to talk about that we'll talk about that with the net sheet. Yeah, good, cool. Good. I'll make sure we get to that. Good. And most of the time they're like, no, man, that's all we want to talk about. Almost every time with me, they're like, no, man, that's all I want to talk about. All right, cool. So you ready to dig into the numbers? Yeah, good. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to do something really simple. I'm going to pull out a single page, if I even pull out a single page, or for now, I've got my Remarkable, right? So I'll pull out a page and I will say, okay, so based on this market, what I did is I pulled a cross section of our overall area, and I want to show you what the overall area numbers and metrics and market's been doing for the last last year or so. What it's currently doing, what's going for last year, and then let's go back 5 years real quick. Say where it was 5 years ago. How long have you been in the house? 7 years? Good. Hey, good news is this was a freaking fantastic purchase. In this market now, almost everybody that's been in a house for 5 years was a great idea. They've got a ton of equity in almost every state in the country. Well, in every state in the country, equity's up on all these houses over the last 5 years. Okay. So with that said, great decision. This thing's got a ton of equity in it if you bought it 7 years ago. That's the good news, right? So let's go over what's going on specific in the market. I'm going to give a quick market overview. I just want to keep this like 2 minutes. Right? What's the current supply of homes? Like right now in my market right here, 1.7 month supply of homes, which is still really low. And what that means is that if you put a house on the market and it's priced right, it's going to sell quick and it's going to sell for top dollar. Does that sound good? Good. Okay. And what we look at over last year, median sales price in this neighborhood is $350 now. It was $325 last year. So your house has appreciated almost $25,000 in the last year. It's a lot of money, right? And by the way, over the last 5 years, it's appreciated whatever the number is, 5 years in Michigan, 55.9% on average in Michigan. Okay, guys, you want to know some of this information. When I did the big agent meeting earlier today, recorded that. What I did is I actually opened up my phone and I said, hey, by the way, so I got this little map here. Check this out. I've got this little map and I say, hey, do you want to know how much the average house in Michigan's appreciated in the last 5 years? And they're like, yeah. Like, here you go. It's 55.3. Okay. So I have something like this in my back pocket, right? So that when I give them the overview, I tell them a number and then I show them the number, my credibility goes through the roof. So now when we're talking about numbers and metrics, they have a good overview. I don't want to go 4, 5, 7, 10, 15 minutes on what the market is and where it's going and all the rest of the stuff that goes with it and the politics behind it. I'm going to avoid all that. I want to give a quick overview. Does that make sense? So right now in this market here, it's either market's moving good. It's very much like it was last year and the year before. If we price a house to sell, it's going to sell fast and sell for top dollar. Good. Or, hey, by the way, last couple of years, things have been really moving, but this year it's actually slowed down a little bit. So what's happening is now if we put a house on the market that's priced right, we don't get as many showings, but we can still get good money for the house if we're priced right. So pricing is super important right now with the market softening up. So the last thing we want to do is be on the market for a really long time. Make sense? Yeah. And these people now, they're starting to go, yeah, this makes sense. Okay. If you keep it simple and keep it short, you're going to get people that are leaning in that want to keep communicating with you. If you go into really long, exhaustive explanations, you're going to confuse them. And the more confused they are, the less likely they are to make a decision. The more variables you give them to think through, the less likely they are to make a decision. So if you're doing listing appointments consistently and you're having people say, Russ, thanks for the info. Appreciate it. We really need to think about it. They need to think about it because they're confused. They need to think about it because there's too many variables for them to nail it down. So what I want to do is as I'm going through this presentation process, like, okay, now you understand what's going on in the market. Great. Now let's show you what your home does in this market and why we're going to price your home where it needs to be priced in this market to get it sold. Sound good? Yeah, cool. Now I'm going to pull out basic info. Now, here is something that I do that I've very seldom ever seen anybody do. But I've taught and trained it a bunch. And when people start doing it, they find that they get way better buy-in, way less confusion, and way, way, way more people saying, yes, I'm going to make a decision. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the single page, what do they call it? Grid results, right? And I'm going to actually just put 3 things on one page if I can. Okay. I'm going to pull a cross section of their neighborhood. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, and I'm going to describe what I pulled, okay? On this sheet of paper, what I've done is I've printed out all the homes that are just like yours that are within X amount of square footage. So I'm going to go plus or minus 10%, okay? I'm going to go plus or minus 10%. And you might say, well, Russ, that's an awful big number. Well, yeah, it can be depending on how the house is set up. But let's be clear. I had a house when I bought a house in Florida. My house was just under 1,400 square foot, 1,300 square foot. Okay, tiny little thing. Okay, 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths, and a gigantic open living room, dining room space. It was 17 by 27 feet, which is the size you'd have in a 3,000 square foot, 4,000 square foot mansion typically, right? But the way the house was set up, there was no hallways. The bedroom was like literally a stub of a hallway where the bathroom door was, and then the 2 other bedrooms, and then the hallway with a closet basically going into that was it. The rest of the space was an open L shape. The whole thing was wide open. So we touched every square foot of that house every single day. It was the most user-friendly, usable square footage I've ever had in a house. So that 1,300 compared to my neighbor's 1,625, he comes over and he's like, well, Russ, your house is bigger than mine. I'm like, no, it's not. My house is 1,300 square foot. Yours is 1,625. I know, because I pulled it up on tax records. He's like, no, it's not. Come over to my house and take a look at it. So Dave and I, he's still fighting me. I'm like, we took a tape measure to the place, literally. Tax records. He's like, this has got to be wrong. It's got to be wrong. So we took a tape measure to the place, and he finally conceded my house was actually way smaller than his, okay? So if you get a small house that's laid out right, it can feel big. If you get a bigger house that's laid out wrong, or 4-bed versus 3-bed, it can feel really cut up into smaller spaces. If you get a traditional floor plan versus an open floor plan is going to feel bigger for a smaller square footage house because you got the openness. When you get the multiple spaces, you got the formal living room, formal dining room, family room, plus kitchen, plus den, plus 2-bedroom. You got all these cut up spaces on the main floor. It doesn't feel open and big a lot of times. It's hard to tell what the square footage is, okay? So I want to use plus or minus 10 feet because the average buyer can't really tell the difference between 1,000 square foot and 1,200 square foot, right? Or 1,200 versus 14. Depends on how the house is set up. So I want to just give it a range, okay? So with that said, I'm going to pull all of the properties that are just like yours. So what I did is I pulled all of the properties that are just like yours, plus or minus 10%. In this one, actually, because of your neighborhood and because the houses here are so many similarities, I'm actually only within 50 square feet on these houses here. Because this neighborhood has a bunch of stuff that's very, very similar, I'm plus or minus 50 square feet on these, right? So I went 3 beds, 2 bath, 2-car garage, and lot very similar size. Good? So I pulled all the properties that are sold in the last 30 days, just like yours. I pulled all the properties that are under contract, just like yours. And I pulled all the properties that are active, or competition, that are just like yours. Do you notice I keep saying over and over and over, just like yours, just like yours, just like yours? Okay? And then I'll pause and I'll say, does that make sense? Do you agree? This is a good cross section. These are just like yours. Yes. Yes. Good. Yes. Yes. Not just yes. 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 Good. I want to make sure everybody's buying, because now I've got to go over this information. And if they don't believe that I've got a good cross section or the right cross section, and by the way, caveat, every once in a while, I did a crappy job of doing the pre-list. I didn't, for whatever reason, either missed something because we're goofing off, or I forgot to ask something, missed some key piece of information, or the tax record's completely wrong and they didn't know, and turns out this is not accurate. Every once in a while, we'll have something that's like, man, these numbers this is not accurate. This is not just like yours. Let's start over. Okay. I want to make sure I think it's just like theirs and they think it's just like theirs. Now I can move forward. Do you see how we're starting to build credibility? Okay. So when I go through this, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the properties that are sold. And what this means is if you were on the market 60 days ago, 90 days ago, and you were priced at these prices, you'd be in this department right here. You'd be sold, you'd be moving, and somebody else would have a welcome wagon with hot cookies being dropped off at the door for your new neighbors. Cool? The second one is the properties are pending. This means they were in the active mode and people are like, I looked at the house looks good. That fits. We'll negotiate it. I don't know what the actual close number is yet, but I know if I was priced that in similar condition, I'd be under contract too. Makes sense? So good news is these two are going to tell us exactly where you need to be priced so that you get under contract too. Cool? Yeah, good. And then the third part is these are the properties that you have to compete against. This is your competition. So what we need to do is we make sure as we're going through, we look good in the eyes of the competition. So when they've got 5 houses to look at and they look at yours and the other 4, they say, that's the one I want. For whatever reason, that's the one you want, right? So if we're priced right and we have similar quality, that's what they're going to buy. Yes? Good. Make sure they're saying yes. Yes. Good. Cool. So let's start with the solds. Okay. Here's what the properties in your neighborhood actually closed. These are recorded sales, done deal. Somebody's got the new set of keys. Yeah. And here's what they are. Okay, so let's go through this one. This one's just like yours. 1,275 square feet, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage, and it sold for how much? Keep in mind, guys, I've got this like a piece of paper, right, sitting on the table, just that. And I point at it. How much? Make them say it. Now, sometimes you'll have somebody who's like, that number's ridiculous. Understood, right? This is just part of the story, okay? I'm not saying you have to price your house there. I'm just simply saying that that's what has sold in your market, which means that's what the next buyer is going to be comparing to also. So let's go through the next one. Boom, boom, boom. Make them say the numbers, right? And then if they start fighting or pushing back, it's like, hey, I'm not saying you're going to price your house here. I'm just simply saying this is what the competition did. They were on the market and they just closed in the last 30 days. So this is the market telling you what they're willing to pay for a house just like yours. Does that make sense? So good news is, here's the properties that are pending. Typically, the properties that are pending are higher priced than the ones that are sold because there's negotiation, unless, of course, it's been the market over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And sometimes the properties that are pending are actually higher than the ones that are actually closed because the properties prices have been going up. So right now, they're flat in a lot of markets. In some Florida markets, they've dropped down a little. In some California markets, they've dropped down a little bit. So you got to know what's going on in your market. That's part of the reason why I'm going to drop that QR code at the end of this so you guys can have some modules on how to do a good market update and understand what the market's doing, okay? So let's go through the properties that are pending. Here are the properties that are just like yours. If you were on the market at this price, your property would be under contract. Good? Walk them through it. Same? Yes. Just like yours? Yes. And what's the price? What's the price? Price? Good. Now, last but not least, here's the properties that are active. So properties are active. These are the ones that are available for sale. This is your competition. And two things. Number one, any one of these could go at any given time for various reasons. And two, the second thing we need to be looking at is for active properties, how long was it on the market? How long is it on the market? Because what you're going to find is the properties that are priced well in this category are going to end up in this category pretty fast. The ones that are not priced well in this category are going to have higher days on market. Now, remember, when we talked earlier, you said you needed to have this home sold in 30 days so you could be out of it before 60 days because you're going to wherever. Remember you said that, right? Yeah, good. So when we look at these, what we want to do is we want to make sure we're not pricing it like somebody that's on the market for 90 or 120 or 180 or 365 days, right? We want to price it like the ones that went under contract. Yes? Do you see how I'm guiding them to the right price versus telling them the right price? Okay, so here's the properties that are active. So based on that information, these are just like yours, very similar. Where should you price your house to show value in the eyes of the buyers and get the buyers to say, yes, that's my house. I want to buy that one. Where do you think you should be priced? Stop. Let them say whatever they're going to say, okay? If they got it and you've got credibility with them and it made sense and you kept it simple, they're probably going to say the right number, and a lot of times they'll say the right number. If they don't say the right number, then we've got another conversation to have, okay? So here's where it becomes fun. You guys might be like, Russ, you consider this fun? Yes, I do. Maybe there's something wrong with me because I consider this fun, okay? So what we need to do is we need to make sure we're keeping two separate conversations here, right? So if they don't say the number, so let's just say, there's a property available for $350, $375, $369, and then let's just say $360. Okay, those are the properties that are available for sale. And I say, where do you think you should price your house? If they say, if there's those available, I should probably be priced right by this guy at $350. Yes. Okay, they get it. Okay. If they say something like, well, there's no way I'm selling my house for that, Russ. Like that's not happened. I want $400 for my house. Okay. Got it. So let's have a separate conversation here. You ready? Yeah. Good. Okay. There's two conversations we're going to have. One is, what should I price my house at? What should I price the house at? And then the second conversation is, what would you? Because right now they're saying, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm like, got it. Fine, okay? That's what you would do, okay? But what should you do? Because I want to make sure you understand, we're communicating, I want to make sure you understand the information that I just gave you, okay? Because if you understand the information that I gave you, 400 is not the right answer. Do you agree? And then you shut up and you smile and you nod your head. Do you agree? And if they go, yeah, right. Okay, good. So let's just talk about what you should be priced at. And then let's have a second conversation. What will you price at? Does that sound fair? Now you're getting them to buy in again, right? I'm not forcing them to go 350. I just want to make sure they say the words out loud, because here's the deal. If we don't get them to the point where they understand where they should be priced, they understand it, where they should be priced, they're not going to be likely to actually do it. And if they do it, and then for some reason it doesn't sell in a timely manner, then they blame you because it's your price. I want this to be their price, and I want this to be their price based on them understanding that they actually understand what's going on in the market. Okay, so I need you to say this out loud because I want you to I want to know that you understand what should we be doing here. And if they're still fighting, then I'm going to draw it out. Okay, so I'm going to grab a piece of paper, flip this piece of paper over. I said, let me just walk it through really simple. Okay, and this is the objection handler for pricing, by the way. Okay, I'm going to draw stick figure houses. I know you guys are shocked by that. I was asked if I have a PowerPoint earlier, and I said, no, I don't have a PowerPoint. I got a whiteboard. And I do this on a piece of paper because, guys, I want this to be connecting to them as a human, right? I don't want to just show them another stat and another graph and another chart. That's just not my style. It never has been. So what I want to do is I'm going to draw these 5 houses out and say, okay, so here's the deal. Here's your competition. I've got these 5 houses that are just like yours. Notice they look pretty much the same, right? They're just like yours. I've got one that's 350. I've got one that's 375. I've got one that's 369. I've got one that's 360. And you said you wanted to price your house at 400. Yes? Okay, cool. So based on that, if you are buyer shopping for houses and all the houses are similar, and I'm telling you these are all pretty similar, okay? If they're all similar, which one of these houses would you buy? If you had these 5 houses to choose from, they're all similar to yours, which one would you buy? And if they're being rational, they're going to say this one. Okay, great. So even you wouldn't buy your house at 400 if you were a buyer in this market. Does that make sense? And then sometimes you'll hear people say something like, well, if you do marketing, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let me explain to you how marketing works within the real estate world, okay? I'm going to take your house and I'm going to put it on with Barbara Corcoran on the CBS morning, whatever they call that show, right? And Barbara Corcoran comes on and she's like, I got the house of the week. We've got this house in Florida. Check this out. It's $400,000. It's blah, 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 blah. This house is gorgeous. Can you imagine? And there's a bunch of people in the Northeast who are like, you can buy a house like that for $400,000. That'd be $1.5 million here on a postage stamp lot and 150 years old, right? You can buy a new house for holy moly. And what happens? That buyer's like, I'm booking a flight. We're going down there, right? Like my grandmother's like I hope when I get old, I want to retire and move to Florida. She's a Jersey girl, right? So the dream to move to Florida, right? So what happens is they come down to Florida and they get just looking at houses and they look at the 400 and they're like, wow, this thing's amazing. And then because they're a normal buyer, they look at the other 4 houses that are in the same neighborhood that are very, very similar, almost identical to them. And they look at it and they go like, for $50,000 less, I'll buy this house. So what happens is the more I market this house, the faster I get this one sold, then this one sold, then this one sold, and this one sold. So this one goes first, this one goes second, this one goes third, this one goes fourth, and this guy's probably going to have to drop his price to go fourth, right? So do you want to help all the neighbors sell their houses, or do you want to sell your house? Okay, so then we can go down to the simple, okay? So you got one house that's 350, one house that's 400. If you had to choose one of these 2 houses to purchase, which one would you buy? 350? So would I, and so would almost every other buyer. So what price should you be? Should be 350-ish or so, plus or minus, right? So now, let's do this, okay? Here's the fun part. We're going to hone in on a price, and we're going to hone in on a price really fast, okay? So now you've got 2 houses to choose from. So now you got a game going, okay, you got 2 houses to choose from. One's 350. And the other one's $350,000, and they're both pretty similar. Which one do you buy? Either, right? So how do you get sold if you're just like the neighbor's house and you're the same price? How do you get sold first? So if you go 345 and you're virtually identical and they're 350, who do you think is going to get the offers almost immediately? Barring there's some taste thing within the houses or color thing within the houses they don't want to change. If they're almost identical, they're going to go with the 345 all day. That's how we get your home sold in this market. And now you might say, but Russ, my house is nicer than the neighbors. Okay, great. So what specifically are you talking about? And by the way, sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're a little more updated. Sometimes they're a little more tasteful. Only and only then will I go into the actual details on these houses, right? Because if I start going into the details on these houses and opening up pictures and looking at colors, the visual people are going to get completely lost. And now we're making an emotional decision based on flavors and styles and colors, not based on the metrics in the market. Because I want them to see this like a buyer that has no attachment to anything in the house. Okay, so what happens is now I've got two houses to choose from. They're both $350,000. They're 350, you're 350, and yours is a little bit nicer. So if you got two houses side by side, one's 350, the other one's 350, and one's a little nicer, which one would you buy? Boom. And that's how we get your home sold in this market. So based on that, what do you think you actually should sell your house at? 350 and you're a little nicer? I agree. Does that sound like something you'd be willing to do? Now, sometimes I'll have to go through this 2 or 3 or 4 times. Okay. But when I break it down to that simple on the pricing, and you guys are going to start seeing some of these conversations happening as markets softening a little bit in some of these markets, you're going to see some areas where people have been historically overpricing, knowing the market's coming up to them. Now you actually have to be priced right and ready to go, priced right when you go into the market. You're going to have to start making sure you're really clear on making sure you're priced right out of the gate. So just being able to take a piece of paper out and doodle this out really simple, it really stops the nonsense and the noise and gets them to what you should be doing. And if I can get them to say what they should do, I've got a real good chance of getting them to do what they would do. Now, you got a bunch of other things that go with this, like, well, what if I do 360? What if I do 3? Can I just test the market at 360? And I'm just going to take this and I'm going to draw it back out again. Like, here we go. Okay. So you got one that's 360, one that's 350. Let's test the market. Here's 360. One's 350, and you got 2 to choose from. Which one would you buy? If I had 2 pair of Nike Air Jordan high tops, classics, red, black, and white, right? Classics. You got 2 pairs, identical, both size 11, fit my feet perfectly, right? If you want to send me a pair, shoot them over my way. So size 11, Air Jordans, old school stuff. One pair is 300, the other pair is 290. Which one are you going to buy if they're in the same condition? You're going to buy the 290 all day, right? All day you're going to buy 290. It's exactly how buyers look at buying a house because they're not attached to it like you are. So we need to show value in the eyes of the buyer and make them say, yeah, for that price, for that house, I'll take it. Good. So there you go. There's a pricing strategy. It'll take your business to the next level, help you actually move through listings made simple. You can take a bunch of chunks of this, and I would say if you keep it really simple first and you need to add a little bit to it, great. Now, the third part. Am I the right guy for the job of selling a house? By the time I got through 1 and 2, you're already going to know the answer to 3. Remember we said that in the beginning? Overview opening, talk about market, and then I would say, talk about the value of the house, talk about what the price is. So let me show you what your net sheet looks like. Show them the number, right? Now, based on that, do you feel like I'm the right guy for the job of selling your house? If they say yes, shut up, sign the paperwork. Don't continue to sell them on how great you are. Do you think I'm the right guy for the job of selling your house? Yes. You want a strong negotiator working on your behalf, selling your house. Yes. Yeah. How am I doing so far? And a lot of times they're like, duh, God, yeah. I want you on my side when it comes to negotiating. Good. That's exactly what I want you to feel. Anything else you need to know about me to make a good decision? No? Good. You ready to put the paperwork together? Yeah? Good. Boom. Start signing paperwork. Okay? Don't talk them out of the sale. Start signing the paperwork. Now we just got to dot some I's and cross some T's on some other basic stuff, okay? So there's a good basic listing made simple structure for you guys that you can follow all the time to be able to take your business to the next level, be able to get more listings more consistently, get that close ratio for listings up in the 90s, which you can do routinely by keeping things simple like this. You'll build credibility. You'll build a reputation for being honest, a reputation for getting the job done, reputation for pricing things right, and you're going to get a lot more business because we know listings come from referral. Get more referrals out there. Do things that make you trustworthy and people will trust you. I'm Russ Laggan, Vice President of Growth. Thank you for watching Executive Masterclass. Reach out if you got any questions. See you soon.